Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. Thai Dubai is always close to my heart, like anything that you set up from scratch and get going. That was 18 years ago in 2002 when I got back from a ThaiCon in Silicon Valley and got all excited about bringing Thai to Dubai. And October it could be incorporated and inaugurated in 2003, and the rest they say is like history. And today I couldn't imagine what that baby would look like as a full-fledged adult 18 years from then, which it is today. 18 years is a great time for a child to grow up and be an adult. Today, it's vibrancy, diversity, it's so multifaceted and innovative programs all the time. So, but always focused on fostering Thai's global mission of, fostering entrepreneurship. That focus has always been the heart and soul of Thai, and that always will be. In that context, I think we've done a number of things: mentoring, coaching, networking, connecting, enabling investments, and continually stimulating, if I can say, the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Two specific programs that I want to bring to attention that we just mentioned to me is there's going to be a pitch session for budding entrepreneurs on the 29th. These are university students who want to be entrepreneurs, and mentorship coaching sessions, how to be a mentor. That will come up in June. We started that many years ago, and it's come a long way. So these are the real the key elements in the heart and soul of Thai, which will always be close to us, close to everything we do. And all of this would not be possible without our sponsors, our partners, and our charter members who support us all the time. And a big thank you to all of you. Coming to today's session, it's about wellness. And certainly the environment that currently pervades the globe today perhaps has brought wellness into a lot bigger focus. It made us a lot more aware of wellness, if not anything else. Personally, I believe that wellness is something to be looked at holistically. It's wellness of body, mind, and intellect, the three aspects of what a human being is all about. So for you to perceive well with your body, for you to feel your mind and think well with your intellect, it has got to be a lot more holistic way of looking at wellness. But wellness of thought and wellness of feeling and emotion can only be there in a body that is kept well. So that's where it all starts, I believe, and I'm sure we'll talk a little more about that. But to take you through today's session, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator for this afternoon, our young dynamic charter member, TJ. She known as TJ, so don't ask me for a full name. You just cheat more than that, yeah? TJ Lightwala, yeah. So TJ is MD of Accenture Interactive in MENA, the MENA region. And over a decade and a half, she's had diverse experience, primarily in the digital and marketing areas across organizations like Group M, Aegis, Dentsu, KLM, FedEx, very unknown names, you would have never heard of them. Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. So marquee names, people will die to have a CV like this, TJ. And she's a thought leader, and she writes on a variety of subjects like digital transformation and marketing, which is our prime focus. So we have a very distinguished young team and she will take you through the session today. TJ.
Thank you, Hari. Thanks a lot. That was a very warm introduction and a very glowing one. So thank you very much for it. We'll get right into the topic for the day. It's a very interesting one, obviously, in the time that we have, and we'll stick to an hour. So let me introduce you to our latest program and platform, which is Thai Wellness. I like to use this, I like to use the saying, health is a state of body and wellness is a state of being. It's forever on and it's perennial. And with this thought, the Thai platform, the Thai wellness platform, it's truly unique because no other chapter around the Thai globe has this platform as a structured platform. And over here, our ethos is basically to find the right kind of balance and harmony between our work and personal time, and both offer spiritual and physical outlets to how we can create those ambitions in a fruitful way. So I was talking to our president and our president emeritus, PK and Ziad, who I'm sure are on the call, and I kept sending them vibrant pictures on Instagram, and they're all on Instagram and checking out my stories. And I love horses, and I've been doing a lot of Pilates and yoga and getting back into just being physically correct. And so the idea of a Thai wellness platform began to take shape in my head. And therefore, after almost a year of this conversation going back and forth, it was a crystallized formation into a plan. And therefore, now here we are on our fourth session of our wellness stream. So this is what it is. And this platform supports quite a few important things, and I want to share that with you. One is workshops around stress management, time management, balance between work and personal life. And just like that, we have a very interesting topic today. Wellness focused startups and supporting ecosystem partners that are harvesting and nurturing the idea around wellness. Activities that promote physical activities and movement. This is obviously a bit difficult right now because ideally we would have been in physical presence of one another, networking and enjoying time doing recreational activities. And lastly, we are, as Hari said, we're always thankful for our sponsors, but with Thai Wellness, we are also seeking wellness partners to engage with us on the platform. So those are the four things. Now let me introduce to you Saahil Mehta. Saahil is, if you check his Instagram profile, you're going to be absorbed for easily an hour because his content is so rich and dynamic, and you can learn a lot from there. However, I try my best to give you a short introduction of him. So he says he was struggling for balance in his successful career for the last 18 years, right? Between family and having a frantic feeling of anxiety. Sahil, he felt like he was stretched in so many different directions and therefore touch with his true self and his authentic self. And he wasn't he found himself in a place of emptiness and unhappiness. And I talk about this because this is the idea of wellness. We want to be in a trusted environment, in a tribe where we can talk about these feelings. So this place of the so-called unhappiness led him onto a journey, an extraordinary one, born out of isolation. And so while trekking on the summit of the world's tallest mountains like Kilimanjaro, Africa, Elbrus in Europe, Kalapathar at the base camp of Everest, completely unmasked and without judgment. And so now today, Sahil finds himself and most of his time helping people on their journey to live a happy, balanced, stress-free, and a financial abundant life. So he calls himself the decluttering coach, right? And so today's topic is quite an interesting one. How do you change your lens and find the answers within? So with that concept of decluttering, Sahil will take us 4 chapters: decluttering your mind, your body, your space, and your soul to get to a place of balance. So with that, Sahil, I'd love to pass the mic over to you and look forward to the session.
Thank you, TJ, for the warm introduction. Welcome, everyone, on this Monday afternoon. Before we begin, we're just going to have a quick poll question just to see where everyone is, and then we'll start with the presentation. Some interesting results coming in. So we're seeing about a third of the audience finding themselves to be stretched for time. About a quarter of the audience are facing challenges in all 3 areas. And a quarter of the audience, which I want to be a part of, is not facing any of these challenges. Thank you, everyone. So let's begin. Who am I? Who am I? This is a question that has troubled me for many years of my life. I didn't choose my name. I didn't choose my ethnicity. I didn't choose my religion. Another area which also I struggled with was with this identity situation that I had, where I didn't know who I was. And that's where I really had to go deep within to find the answers. I was also always wearing a mask, which was the mask to keep other people happy. But in trying to keep everyone happy, I was always struggling with myself, because as you may already know, to keep everyone happy is impossible. Even if you look at some of the most amazing people that you know in your life, even they have friends or colleagues or people who are enemies. So this is how I felt. I felt I was being pulled in all directions, because as I was trying to make my co-founder and the family happy in the workplace, keeping the family, the spouse and the kids happy at home, trying to keep myself happy, and then working in different communities and trying to keep them happy, I was just being stretched. And it's almost, if you can imagine yourself being pulled by four horses that are attached to each of your four limbs, all going in opposite directions. That's basically how I was feeling. But one day, all that changed. I was on a trip in Europe, and I was with 7 other gentlemen. And on this trip, we all agreed to one thing, and that was we were going to create a safe space with one another, a safe space where we were allowed to open up and where we would not be judged, right? So during these 4 days, some magic occurred. I removed this mask of trying to please others because it didn't matter anymore, because I was not being judged. And I removed all the other masks that I was as well, and just removed, tore down all those walls that were between me and everyone around me, which initially I thought was for my protection. And what I experienced was magic, because I experienced what it felt like to be me. 4 days straight, just being me. I couldn't remember the last time I felt that way. Yes, I get that in pockets every now and again, perhaps even every day. But whenever I'm with someone else, I'm trying to portray to be someone that I want them to perceive me to be, right? But here, I felt it for 4 days straight. And the last time I felt that way, when I really thought hard about it, was when I was a young child. For any of you that have young children or are exposed to young children, you'll notice that they're just filled with compassion and love. So as I came back to Dubai and I was on my flight back, I was noting all these things because I wanted to share it with my wife. And as I was sharing it, I started to become very emotional. And I realized what the power of vulnerability was. As I let down my guard and removed all these masks, I allowed for all this greatness to now come into my life. So with that, when I came back, I said, I'm going to make myself my number one priority. And people often tell me, they say, hey, isn't that a bit selfish? What about your family? What about your work? What about your, whether it's family, your wife, your kids, your parents? So I said, listen, that when I become a better person, the energy that I emit is going to be so much more powerful on such a better frequency that I'm going to start attracting those things in my life as well. And the better I am as a person, the stronger I can create relationships with all those that I love and my colleagues around me as well. So at the end of this webinar, and these are the results that I obtained, and hopefully you'll get the tools to obtain some of these results, if not all of them, and as follows: more time to fill with your passion and priorities, greater focus and awareness, create stronger and deeper relationships, starting each day on a high and with more energy, and finally living a life of love rather than fear. So, for all of you that are born in the 70s or earlier, or remember watching these old prison movies where they had the ball and chain wrapped around the prisoner's leg so that he or she wouldn't escape, that's basically how I felt. With all this mental overload was as a result of having a lot of these balls and chains that I was dragging along everywhere I was going. And if I want to reach new heights, if I want to fly, how can I expect to do that if I've got all this baggage, all this weight that I'm carrying with me? So then I started identifying what all these items were, and I started working on them one at a time so I could break free from the ball and chain one at a time and become more and more free, and to help me achieve results I never thought imaginable. So one misconception that I want to highlight before I continue is that happiness lies in the external world. Over the decades, I've seen that so many things have advanced: technology, medicine, and the list can go on and on. But one of the areas where there has been struggle is mental wellness, right? Mental health, as they say. And these are the statistics from the World Health Organization, but I really want to get your attention onto the first one. 1 in 5 the world's population have some sort of mental health challenge, right? So that's how big it's become. Why, you may ask? It's something that not everyone is comfortable speaking about. And even when they do, and in my case, when I openly spoke about some, a small challenge that I faced, people would tell me, hey, just, forget about it. Just think positive. You're fine. So it's almost like it's the big pink elephant in the room that no one wants to speak about. But the good news as we go through this webinar is that as we start to remove all that clutter in our life, the ball and chains, is that we will start to see more clearly and we'll be able to go deeper within and find all the answers that we're looking for. So what I'm going to share with you, and if any of you that practice shooting or archery, you'll recognize like a target. We're going to start with the outer layer, which is decluttering from the material world, because that's easier. And as we get towards the center, it's going to get harder and harder. So this is the 4-step strategy that I've developed to declutter from the material world, body, people, and the mind. And ultimately, as you do this, it also helps you to find out your why, right? Because they say the 2 most important days in your life are the day you were born and you found out why. So before I get on to decluttering from the material world, we're going to ask another poll question for all of you. So if you can just take a quick few seconds to answer that, please. So the question is, in my material world, the options are I have enough, I do not have enough, I need more. And I have more than what I need. Amazing. So we're seeing almost half of the audience responding to I have enough. About 25 to 30% are responding I have more than what I need. And then the rest goes in the other 2 options. So we'll just share the results with you. There you go. And it's interesting. I strongly believe that as a result of being locked up for a few weeks and now having restricted access, people have really understood the difference between want and need. And that's what I'm going to be speaking about now. So this is a picture of myself and my wife, who's there in the light blue at the bottom, and 4 other women, all from Dubai. You may even recognize some of them. And here we are at the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, right? The tallest mountain in Africa. And while we were there, living on the mountain for 7 days, we didn't have any of the luxuries that we enjoy here in Dubai. We're sleeping in tents, there's no showers, outdoor toilets and all of that. So I asked all these ladies, I said, listen, apart from family, what do you miss the most? And the 3 common answers that came up between all of us was a warm room, a bed, and running water. Now I ask you, how often do we take these things for granted? We're so blessed to have these items. These are among the basic necessities that we need in life, which are shelter, food, and basic clothing. Some might even argue that the internet has now become a necessity, but that's a separate conversation. But no one was thinking about, going out to a fancy restaurant or wanting to buy the latest handbag or whatever it was. And we really started to understand what we really need in life, which are the necessities, and everything else is really a want or a desire. So next time when you say, I need a new pair of shoes or I need a new laptop, perhaps we want to rephrase that and write down, I want, because in reality, we don't need it. So now that, when you have restricted access to go outside and you have spent many weeks in lockdown, one of the things that can be done to start decluttering your life is to start identifying rooms or areas of the house or apartment and go, hey, let me go through everything I have here and see, does it still serve a functional purpose in my life? So this is a 3-step methodology that I've used and I'm going to share with you. And I'm going to use my cupboard as an example. So when I went through my cupboard, I took everything out. And in the cupboard, it doesn't look like much, but when you take it out, it was overflowing from the bed. I thought it would all fit on the bed, but it was overflowing. And I split everything into 3 piles. The first pile was, I use this often, I want to keep it. The second pile was, I honestly can't remember the last time I wore this. So it needs to go. And when I say it needs to go, it's about giving it to someone else who's not as privileged as I am. So essentially, I'm putting a smile on someone else's face, and you can call that decluttering for smiles, right? And the third pile that I put everything into was the pile. I wasn't sure, should I give it away? Should I keep it? There's a memory attached to it. I used to fit in it, and hopefully, although I haven't for the last 2 years, I still think I'm going to fit into it one day, whatever it is, right? But there's a reason why you haven't given it away. Ask yourself why you're keeping it. Because if it's a memory, my question to you is, does that memory disappear when you give the item away? And the answer is no. And if if you've kept it for 2 years and every time you see it, it gives you, a sad face because you remember the time when you used to fit it and you don't anymore, why are you keeping something that doesn't give you joy, right? Let's give these things away to someone it can give joy to. But again, if you're on the fence, put it in a box and just keep it away. And the rule that we have is if that box is unopened for 3 to 6 months, gotta go, right? So again, if it doesn't have functional benefit in your life, let's make sure that we give it to someone that where it can benefit them. And during this time of Ramadan, this becomes even more important when the whole aspect of community is more on our minds. So before I get on to decluttering the body, again, we have a quick poll question, which is going to be coming up. So the question is, while decluttering my body, I would like to improve on and then the options are food habits, sleep, exercise, all of the above, none of the above. So right now we're seeing a trend that a lot of people are selecting all of the above. There's about half of the audience response is all of the above. We're seeing about close to 30%, 25% picking exercise. And we have just shy of 20% on food habits and sleep each. Excellent. So the good news is we're going to be covering all three, because everyone, pretty much apart from 2 people who need none of the above, everyone needs one of these areas. So decluttering the body, if it doesn't feel right, it probably is not. The beautiful thing that we have is this amazing machine, right, which I call the human body. And it's always giving you signs. The question is, are you listening? How many times does your body say, I'm tired, I need to sleep, but you're pushing and you're saying, no, I need to finish this, I need to speak to friends, whatever it is. But are you really listening? Are you saying, okay, maybe I need to listen to my body and rest? What about those times when you ate something and you go, ooh, that didn't feel too good. I'm feeling bloated, I'm feeling uneasiness. Are you being aware of what's going on? Start paying attention to what your body is saying. Start listening, because when this machine works at its best, that's when it's no longer going to be a distraction for you to achieve the results that you want to achieve. So the things that I'm going to speak about, I'm going to start with food. One of the things that I've done, which has been very effective for me, is I've started reading the ingredients of anything that comes into the house that's in some sort of a package. And to my shock, I couldn't believe that some of the things that we were consuming as a family had such high levels of sugar inside. As you may have already heard, sugar is a very addictive ingredient. So how about we start looking at the ingredients and look for the following, which are, things you want to probably avoid putting into your body because they're not necessarily good for you, right? And so we're looking at high fructose corn syrup, artificial sweeteners, artificial coloring, MSG, sodium nitrites and nitrates, and just all the different forms of sugar. They get very creative. I remember I was eating a granola bar, and when I looked at the ingredients, the first 3 items were sugar, but they're mentioned in different names, right? One will be cane sugar, one will be brown rice sugar, one will be coconut sugar. So they make it sound a little bit healthier, I guess, but essentially it's still sugar. So start looking at everything that you're consuming and ask yourself, is this something I want to put into my body? And the worst is, some of those ingredients that you could only remember from back in chemistry class, right? We definitely don't want any of those. So start looking at the ingredients of what you eat. The second thing that I want to highlight is sleep. I used to sacrifice everything for sleep. This is before the lockdown, going out with friends, waking up early to do my morning routine, which I'm going to get to, whatever it was, but sleep was always being sacrificed. Now, why is sleep being sacrificed? Sleep is when the mental and physical recovery of the body is happening, which is essentially the healing. So how can you get a great night's rest where you get maximum healing, which is ever so important today when you want to ensure that your immunity is as strong as possible, right? So that also includes not eating all that food that's processed and with all those bad ingredients that I mentioned earlier. But here's the thing. And this is not necessarily for now because of Ramadan, but once Ramadan is finished, you want to ensure that you have a gap of at least 2 to 3 hours before between your dinner and your sleep. Why? Because as part of your digestion, the first part, the place where the food is going, is your stomach before it enters the small intestine. And that process in the stomach takes anywhere from 2 to 5 hours to digest. So by having at least a 2 to 3 hour gap between your dinner and your bedtime, you're ensuring that it's at least gone out of your stomach so you feel lighter. And digestion takes up energy, right? So anywhere from 10 to 30%. And the more complex food you eat, like the more processed food or the foods that are harder to break down, the more energy is being consumed. And that includes protein, by the way. So, having a very high protein diet for dinner is not necessarily a good thing because it requires more energy to break down. So by having lighter protein and having, the complex carbohydrates, not the simple ones, you're essentially allowing for less energy being used for digestion. And that also means that more energy is available for healing while you're sleeping. The next thing I do is 1 hour prior to sleep, all lights are dimmed in the house and all electronic gadgets are off. No TV, no laptop, no mobile. I know you're looking at me going, oh my God, I can't do that. But listen, it's all emitting blue light. And your mind is thinking when it gets that blue light that it's still daylight outside, and that then hampers with the production of melatonin. And melatonin is essential for sleeping, right? To help you fall asleep. Now you can take tablets, but that's not an ideal situation. And look, if you work across many countries of the world and you say, Saahil, I have to work on certain days of the week in the evening, or we have movie nights with the kids once a week, so we want to watch TV. Fine. If you really must, go out and purchase a pair of blue light filter, blocking glasses. They're usually with an orange tint. There's many available. They're not that expensive. And that at least blocks the blue light, and hence your melatonin is still going to be produced. And apart from that, when you're getting to bed, have a sort of a routine, because your body loves routine and it understands that you're about to fall asleep. So whether it's changing into your pajamas, brushing your teeth, shutting off the lights, lowering the AC so there's a cool room, your body automatically recognizes that, okay, I'm about to fall asleep. So it starts getting into that sleep mode. Okay, now the thing is, many people say I sleep 8 hours or 7 hours, but it's not just the hours you sleep, but when you're sleeping. Based on our cycles, the physical recovery is happening from about 10 in the evening till about 2:30 in the morning. And from that point till about 6:30 in the morning is when you're having your mental recovery. So if you're going to bed at 2 in the morning, for example, and waking up at 9 and saying, I get 7 hours or I get 8 hours and that's good for me, but you didn't really get that physical recovery. And that's why maybe when you wake up and you're sleeping, too late, you find that your body is still aching physically because that recovery didn't take place. And so, a lot of you also chose exercise. And I want to highlight one thing in the exercise is that exercise is only going to be effective if you get the sleep and the food right. If you just do exercise and you're abusing sleep and you're abusing your body with food, the impact is going to be minimal, right? The sleep and the food part is absolutely critical. And I'm just going to share with you a before and after picture of myself. And in this picture from 2015 to 2019, the only difference is that I slept better and I changed my food habits. If anything, my exercise levels went down. And in these two pictures, I went from a 24% body fat down to 13%. So that just highlights again the importance of having a right, making sure you see what you're eating, making sure you're getting good fats, getting the proteins and the carbohydrates, getting a good night's rest so you get the healing and recovery. Otherwise, no matter how much you work out, you're just not going to see results. And that's what was happening to me. I was working out heavily and not seeing the results that I should have seen because the other two were being sacrificed. So now that we get on to Declutter People, we're just going to have one poll question popping up. Here we go. So the relationship that I need to improve the most is with and the options you have are parents, your partner or spouse, your children, colleagues or employees, friends, all of the above, or none of the above. You're absolutely perfect with all your relationships. So this is interesting. This is probably the first poll where we're seeing very similar results pretty much across the board in the answers. So I think we'll end the poll now and share the results with you. So you can see that for many people, it's all of the above. So the good news is what I'm going to be sharing with you now is going to be helping in any kind of relationship. So whenever I say declutter people, everyone assumes that it means to get rid of people. Now, yes, there might be some people that are not important in your life because they're not a friend, they're not a colleague, they're not a family member, but they just happen to be in your life every now and again. Maybe it's a friend's friend, maybe it's a stranger you met at a restaurant or at a bar, whatever it might be. But the point is, they're not necessarily going to have an impact on you. And they might have hurt you at that moment in time. Yes, you don't need to see them again, easy. But the decluttering that I'm speaking about is to remove the clutter that's between you and the other person so that your relationship can become stronger and deeper. So the first tip that I want to share with you is really you have to understand things from the other person's perspective, right? If you're standing right in front of me and I draw this 6 on the ground, what do you see? You see a 9, right? Now you can argue with me till the end of day that that's a 9 on the ground, and I can argue with you till the end of day that it's 6 on the ground. In this particular case, both of us are right. It's not about who's right or wrong, but we are both right. And all it would have taken was just to say, hey, if this other person is so adamant, why don't I try to see it from their perspective? Because maybe they see something that I don't. So let's make a promise to ourselves that we're now going to start seeing things from the other person's perspective, right? Now, what I'm going to share with you next is a framework that you can use to get closer, because I don't know about you, but I used to see some of these conversations where I wanted to share something. Initially I would, not even have it because of fear. And when I did have the courage to have the conversation, I would play it out in my head, and, it seemed confrontational, and it would, result in anger and frustration. And, I would just make up excuses for the other person, like, oh, it's just them, I should change. I don't do that anymore, right? I want to have stronger and deeper relationships. I don't want to have this unsaid between us that is causing friction. And maybe it's only on my side, but remember, I'm focusing on me, just as you should be on yourself, right? So here's the framework that I use with people. One, I make sure that I'm in a quiet space that's private, right? No distractions. The mobile phone is on silent. It's put away so that it's not going to be interrupting. I I enter the conversation with compassion, love, and empathy. Why? Because if I'm entering with a positive state of mind, I can expect to get a positive result at least. If I'm entering with anger or frustration, and I want to point fingers at the other person, how do I expect to get a positive outcome? I might feel good. It might fuel my ego that I'm right and you're wrong, but did that really help in bringing us closer together? So now that we've established that, when I then start communicating with the other person that, look, this is the outcome that I'd like to achieve, right? So I'm clear from the beginning that this is the outcome and it's something that's positive, right? because I want to get closer. I want to, work closer together if it's a colleague, whatever it is for you. I certainly don't point fingers, right? I don't say you this, you that. I talk about my feelings because no one can question my feelings. They are what they are. I own them. But if I'm going to point fingers at you, it's very possible that you get defensive and then the conversation is going to go south. The second thing that I clarify is that there's not going to be any raising of voices and absolutely no physical violence. Okay? Because that's not acceptable. The third thing is listening. Now, this is not the passive listening, and it's not the voice, when I'm talking, you're listening to the voice that's in your head, either thinking of a response that you want to give or interpreting what I'm saying. That's not the listening I'm talking about. I'm talking about the listening where I tell you, hey, I'm going to give you 5 numbers right now, which are 2 digits each, and I want you to repeat them back to me in the exact same order. And if you do, you're going to win 1,000,000 dirhams. That's the listening I'm speaking about. I want you completely focused and understand what I'm saying. And lastly, ask questions. If you're not sure on something, don't fill the gap with assumptions, because assumptions are mostly wrong and they're based on your experience of your past or things that you've read or heard, right? So how do you know that that's what the other person meant? So understand what they're saying by asking questions. And if you're not sure, ask again and again and again. It's better to understand than to assume. So these are the techniques that I've used to create a framework to, again, create stronger and deeper relationships. So now, finally, before we get on to decluttering the mind, I have one more poll question for you that's going to come up. What is the first thing you do when you wake up? You check your phone, brush your teeth, drink water, meditation, and I'm sorry if you do something else. We didn't include other. So if you do something else first, what do you do second? But just which of these 4 do you do first? Okay, we're going to stop the poll now and share the results with all of you. Overwhelmingly, most people, 40% are checking their phone first thing in the morning. Very interesting. I wonder what the people who do who, after finishing their water, do they check their phone or do they go somewhere else? But anyway, let's get on to decluttering the mind. So, as I said, one of the results was starting each day with high energy, right? So what I'd like to share with you is what I do every single morning. Now, before I share this morning routine with you, there are 2 no-nos. The first no-no is don't hit snooze or have the mental snooze if you wake up without an alarm. Why? Imagine that's the first action of your day. Before you've done anything else, you've snoozed. Do you really want that to set precedent for the rest of the day and make your subconscious think that, hey, I'm a snoozer? No, right? And the second no-no is no checking of phones, tablets, computers, TV, or newspaper. Let me explain why. I was guilty of this. I used to reach out for my phone and check it. I could barely open my eyes and start reading. But, especially today, there are a lot of messages that are coming that are not exactly the messages I want to read. They're somewhat negative. It could be cash flow issues. It could be, the rates of cases rising somewhere. It could be a client canceling a contract. Whatever it is, the point is, why would you want to start your day with receiving a negative piece of information that just brings you down? Right? Again, I don't know about you, but with me, if you put me in a negative place first thing in the morning, for me to rise back up takes a very long time. And sometimes it takes the whole day just to get back into a good place. Now, how do you think that affects my productivity? How do you think that affects my relationship with everyone around me? Not that great, right? So let's look at pushing all that away and focusing on a morning routine. And I'm going to share what I do to get you started. So the first thing I do is move. I've been lying down for many hours and, my heart rate and pretty much everyone's heart rate goes down about 25, 30% because Your heart only operates enough to get the, to keep your organs functioning so that you remain alive, because more energy goes towards healing. So I move. I want to get the heart rate back up. Now, I do the sun salutation because I love yoga, but you can just walk around. You can do star jumps. You can do push-ups. Do anything for about 10 to 15 minutes, but move. The second thing I do is breath work. Again, because I practice yoga, I do pranayam, but you can do any, just, deep breaths, right? And I'm not talking about the chest breaths where your chest is going in and out. The breath I'm speaking about is the deep one, which is from the belly. So if you put your hand on your belly and you breathe in and out, you should feel your belly going in and out. Those are the deep breaths I'm speaking about. And do that for 10 to 15 minutes. And that's to get oxygen into your cells. So again, to make you energize you in the morning. The third thing I do is meditate. In meditation, there's so many different types. And you've got the guided meditation, you've got the chanting, you've got silent meditation, and so forth and so forth. Try them. See which one works for you. I've had someone come to me and say, oh, I tried it, didn't work. I said, how many times did you try? They tried once. When you went from crawling to walking, did you say, I'm just going to crawl for the rest of my life because I fell once and I hurt my bum? No, you continued to try and you kept failing, but you succeeded. And now you're not just walking, you're running, you're jumping. So try the different forms. And if after trying many different forms, you still are struggling, just sit in silence and reflect. And the fourth thing I do is that I journal. I'm going to take you through my journaling as well. The first three things that I write in my journal are three things that I'm grateful for. Yes, there might be a lot of things going on around me that aren't that great, but there's so much to be grateful for. Being with my family, having 3 meals a day, having good health. The list goes on and on. The next three things I write are three things that I'm excited about. So one of the things I wrote this morning was I was very excited to present to all of you. The next thing I write is a positive affirmation. Now, if you search that on Google, you can find hundreds of thousands of them. But the one that I wrote this morning, which I'll share with you, is I have the power to change my life for the better, to get it right and get the desired results. So find the one that resonates with you and then, write it down. And again, it doesn't have to be the same one every day. It's just whatever's on your mind and you feel that day. The next thing I do is I go through anyone, either knowingly or unknowingly. I ask for forgiveness. And if anyone has hurt me, I forgive them. Because I want to be on a clean slate. That doesn't mean I'm physically calling them up or sending them a message. I'm just cleansing it from within. And then I end with a statement that I picked up from my kids, which I believe they got from SpongeBob, which is today is going to be the best day ever. So now that I've described this morning routine, I'm in such a great place. I'm on such energy. Now, even if you throw some bad news at me, it's okay. You can knock me down a little bit, but you're not going to knock me out. So next, we're going to move on to a concept that I came across, which I found very absurd initially, but then I grew to love and admire. And that's the concept that there's absolutely no need to worry. Now, you might look at me and go, you're crazy. How can you even say that? But here, listen to me, right? Let's go through this process together. Do you have a problem in life? No. Okay, nothing to worry about. That was easy. Do you have a problem in life? Yes. Can you do something about it? No. Well, if you can't do anything about it, then why are you worrying about it? Because it's completely out of your control. And if you can do something about it, then why aren't you doing anything about it? Go ahead and do something. Now, you might say, well, my challenge is more complicated than that. It's not a simple yes or no. But here's the thing. Take anything that you have and break it down into parts that you can control and things that are out of your control. And then the things that are out of your control, remove them immediately. Automatically, that reduces the worrying. And whatever is in your control, start taking action. And that reduces your worry because you know that you put the wheels in motion. So one thing, the title of this presentation was Changing Your Lens, right? So we always, at least not about you, but with me, I always used to think I need to add things in my life to make it better. But here I want to share a fresh perspective. The first step in crafting the life you want is to get rid of everything you don't. So it's these tools that I've shared with you, it's all about cutting those balls and chains away. So now that you can soar to new heights and achieve results you never thought imaginable. So my question to you before we close is, what clutter is holding you from greatness? I want to thank all of you for your time. We're going to open it up to Q&A, but here are my contact details should anyone want to get in touch with me. And there's a QR code on the bottom as well, which if you scan, that's going to take you straight to a page where if you enter your details, you can start getting these actionable items that I've shared with you today into your inbox. So TJ, over to you.
Thank you so much, Saahil. That was amazing. I mean, you started the conversation saying that you wouldn't be able to get through an hour, and here we are almost to the top of the hour, and we are intently still listening to your advice and some of the toolkits of success and to keep us balanced and happy. So, there are a few questions from the audiences that are asking for your presentation, and I'm sure you'll have a way of, sharing that through the process after you are going to at the conclusion of our conversation.
Many of the
today.
actionable items, as mentioned, if you scan the QR code, or I think the Thai organization is going to put a link in the chat. If you go to that link or scan this QR code, you can get to a page on my website where if you plug in your email, you'll receive actionable items that, which are all the ones that I shared with you today.
Wonderful, thank you. So Thai we'll get that done right away. That's good. So Saahil, again, thank you. A few questions that some of the audiences have mentioned and also that are coming up for me, and I'd just like to ask you is, Ramadan is a very interesting time for us, and a lot of us are fasting. And, obviously with the very low energy, how do you sort of keep up with the morning routine? Like I don't even have, sometimes, and I've spoken to a lot of friends, etc., they even find it hard to do the deep breath work, right? Because it takes a lot of energy. And what you want to do during this time is pretty much conserve, even though there is an element of will over physical, mind over matter sort of a thing, but yet you want to conserve because you have 30 more days of relentless fasting to go. What are some of your thoughts and comments around, keeping yourself healthy during Ramadan?
So, so although I'm not I'm not Muslim, so I'm not practicing the fasting. I do fast. I fast twice a month, and I fast for anywhere from 24 to 36 hours in each fast. So it is a long duration of time. And what's interesting is that's when I have a lot of energy. I'm fasting today, for example. I woke up early in the morning. I think I got up at 5:45. I did my entire morning routine. I did yoga for an hour, right? And now I'm presenting to you standing. I'm not even sitting down, because otherwise, I'm sitting down the whole day. But what's happening right now is healing's taking place, because there's no energy that's going towards digesting food. So there's a lot of energy going towards healing. And some of you may have read or heard about autophagy. That's even when your cells, the weaker cells, are being attacked by your stronger cells. So it's a great process of cleansing that's taking place in you right now. So when you start focusing on the benefits that you're getting during this fasting, all of a sudden the fasting becomes easier. If you look at it as, oh my goodness, I can't eat or drink for 12 hours or whatever the time period is for you, yes, of course it's going to be challenging. But if you're thinking that I'm cleansing, and because I don't have digestion taking place, I can go more inwards. So if I meditate, or if I'm reflecting, or if I'm praying, I can go deeper within and be more with myself, with my true self. All of a sudden you see this as an advantage. So it's all about the state of mind, right? You went from, oh God, not this again, I got to do it for 30 days, to, wow, I'm so privileged to do this, and I'm getting and gaining all these benefits. So look at the plus, and then all of a sudden the negatives just disappear. So that's my tip. I actually find the days that I fast, I have more energy. I don't know how or why. I haven't checked, scientifically what the reason is, but I have more energy. It's incredible.
That's really great. I mean, thanks for the response. I think it's about getting used to, and it's also about seeing the fruitfulness of the discipline that you have. Right, it works over time. So that's good. I have another interesting question that is at least a lot of my friends are asking, and we're contemplating over it. And is that because of COVID, we're all sort of in lockdown for our own safety. And somehow we are with some people are by themselves, which is also quite isolationist. Some are with their extended families, which can be kind of difficult as well, because everyone has busy lives and they're not used to being in the same space at the same time 24 hours a day. And with the kids being homeschooled, that's another change in dynamic. A lot has shifted all of a sudden, and everyone's in the four walls of your house, unless of course you have too big of a house and you can't see each other. So that's also possible. We live in Dubai. And what are some of your, some of the things that you've been hearing about how people are coping, living together all of a sudden, 24 hours a day? And conversely speaking, for those who, and that's also the case, that some folks are living by themselves and are feeling quite isolationist as well.
Great question. So, just to give an example, we are 3 generations living in one house, right? So when you're with each other all the time, and a lot of people have their opinions, right? There are a lot of people having opinions. The thing that's worked for me the most is this changing perspective. I really try to understand things from the other person's perspective, because especially when it comes to parents, in my case, my parents are one is close to 70, the other one's above 70. They're pretty set in their ways, but I try to understand things from their perspective, and I use that framework to have those challenging conversations. And because otherwise what happens is all these stories get made up in my mind, and that keeps building up, and eventually, like a volcano, it's just going to erupt. And I certainly don't want that to happen, because I love my parents dearly. I'm just using them as an example. So I've actually set the framework with them. I've had the conversation, and I've said what I wanted to. They've shared what they wanted to. And even though we may have heard things that we didn't necessarily like, we respected that people were speaking truthfully, and it's actually brought us closer together. And the same has happened with the spouse as well. So this is a great opportunity to reach out to people, because now you can reach out through the phone, through Zoom, through so many different mediums. There's really no excuse not to reach out to them and have those conversations. So that's one thing that's worked well. Another thing that works well is, we call it the quiet zone. So you pick a period of the day where everyone agrees they're not going to be watching or doing anything that's very loud. Because sometimes you might want to do meditation, you might want to read, you just don't want distractions all around you. Or maybe you have important meetings, so then you schedule it during the quiet zone period. So that's something that's worked really well for us as well. And that I would highly recommend. But it's really about having those conversations, because assumptions, as you know, they can run wild. And when you're living with them constantly, it's just going to create that barrier between the two of you, and that distance will just grow, even though you're so close physically.
Yeah. Saahil, I'm just drawing my attention to the questions, and there are so many. I'm going to try to ask you as many as I can, so that I've represented all of the audiences over here, and also, consciously maybe we might run over a few minutes, and I hope that's okay. So some of the questions are, have you got any tips for how to change 2 positive habits? And this could be bad diet, bad food, bad sleep. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm trying to represent the question here. Yeah.
Look, the best way to start is have clear direction on where you want to go. Because I find that many people, first of all, use the word discipline. You need discipline in the army. It's too much for me. It sounds like a lot of pressure. But just be clear on your direction. If you're clear that for example, I want my body to function well. Now, all of a sudden, many decisions have become easy, because if you want it to function well, you've got to remove a lot of the foods that are hurting you. Now, okay, if you have, for example, a burger once every now and again, that's fine. But if you're eating that every meal, every day, and you expect to get better, it's not going to happen, right? So be clear in your direction, and then make choices accordingly. Because once you're clear which way you want to move, everything else is simple.
Right, I agree. And direction, and I also feel like if you journal good habits regularly, you're more likely to continue the good habits also.
Yeah, I completely agree. Focus on what you're doing right,
Yeah.
and look at how can I replace what I'm not so happy with, rather than focusing on, oh no, I did this, I did that, I ate this, I ate
Right.
that. Yeah, which can take you in a downward spiral.
Right. Another question: forgiveness, as you mentioned, can be. Forgiveness, as you mentioned, we can make it easy and really forgive and forget. But how is it so easy? Is it really that easy?
No, forgiveness is not that easy. I'm talking about the little ones, right? I mean, someone cut you off on the road while you were driving, for example. These are the ones I'm referring to, right? Because those sometimes you still hold that, right? Like, how did this person cut me off? And you're in a bad mood for the next 4 hours. I mean, you just got to let that go. You don't understand what that person was going through. Maybe they were rushing to the hospital. Maybe they just didn't see you. I mean, there could be lots of reasons, but you assume the one which was, how could they do this to me? But the ones which are bigger challenges where you've been really hurt. Now, TJ, I really want to go into this because it's a subject I'm very passionate about. But forgiveness is a topic in itself. But
Yeah.
the one thing I can share, because I don't want to leave you with nothing, is remember, it's not about them, it's about you. And if you don't forgive, that negative energy is kind of churning inside of your body, right? That negativity. And that's creating certain hormones to be released. It's messing up your chemical balance. So you're really out of sync, right? And if you don't forgive, then you're holding that inside, and that's just going to hurt your health. So it's not about telling them, hey, I forgive you. It's about finding a way to do it. And one great way is through an exchange of energy. And what do I mean by that? A transfer of energy. And one thing that I've done, which has worked very well for me, is I wrote a letter of forgiveness to whoever I had to forgive. Because that energy is being transferred from me out through my arm from that pen onto that piece of paper, right? We all know energy can't be created or destroyed, it can only be transferred. And then once I've written that letter, I then burn it, right? So you can try that. Like I said, I can speak on forgiveness for an hour. It's a
I think
great
that's
stuff. But
it's a
I
good.
wanted to give you at least one tool that you could start to apply and work on yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great. I have a number of questions still. Sahil, I'm going to go through them very quickly. You know, so I'm a student. There's a student on the line. I'm a student, and it's difficult for me to wake up early in the morning. And I've decided many times, but I can't. But since the last 2 to 3 days, I'm back on a daily routine. So thank you for sharing your ideas. That's what she has written. Could you please name the steps of your framework for the decluttering of people you referred, please?
Yeah, so again, just in the interest of time, if you click on that link and you enter your email, that is one of the things that you will receive by email. So unless if you want me to go through it again, but it will take time. But
No,
if
I
you
think
enter email,
it's,
then
yeah, I think it's fine. The links are there, and you've made it very easy via the QR code to get there, and your website's also there, so it's good. Last point, and then we'll wrap up for the afternoon. Sahil, so is the order important in decluttering the mind, i.e., movement, breath work, meditation, and
for the
journaling?
morning routine, look, I'm giving you what works for me. What I always tell people is be fluid. Don't I'm an engineer, and everything for me had to be like in boxes, right? I mean, 5 minutes this, 10 minutes that. It was very regiment. But I've become a lot more fluid and a lot more spiritual. So use that as a starting point. But if you feel that you want to start with meditation first, for example, go ahead. There's no rule around this. It's what works for you. But the important thing is do something, you know, uh, and if you can, wake up earlier before the rest of the family. So in my case, because I have two young kids, 6 and 8, they're full of energy in the morning, and I love that, and they want to spend time with me. So if I try to do my morning routine while they're awake, it's not happening. So I know what time they wake up. I wake up earlier so that I ensure that my morning routine's complete, and I'm full of energy, just as much as them, I hope, when they come running to me in the morning, and then I start my day.
Yeah. Sahil, look, thanks a lot.
Gigi, one brief announcement before we close.
Right.
We mentioned earlier that there are a couple of programs. One is for budding entrepreneurs from universities. So if any of you out there who is in that category and is wanting to pitch to the Thai ecosystem, please get in touch. You may use the chat in this particular event to do that. And anyone who's looking at getting coached to be a mentor, we have this mentorship coaching program. So if you're interested, please chat and use the chat to send a message to Cicely, our outstanding administrator, and she'll take care of that. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Hari. Thanks a lot. Yeah, very good. So Sahil, thanks a lot for your time. I think that was interesting. You had everything quite easily digestible, and that's the comments that I've been getting. I mean, if I read the comments, there's a lot of adulation and compliments about how easy you have dissected the topic, and giving us very, very good information that is achievable on a day-to-day basis. It's important. I personally do journaling, and I think I'm not consistent, but when I do it, I find myself reflecting a lot more. Is there any, just as a, as a last thought, before we close, are there any books you recommend that people read to find their own purpose and journey? Because it's not like a book will give you the answer, but it gives you content and inspiration to self-reflect.
Right. So there's a great book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And it's a book that I thoroughly enjoyed and helped me to propel my journey. So I recommend that. And as a closing, I just want to mention two very quick things. One is, for anyone who didn't have a question answered, feel free to reach out. I'm always available, and I'll be happy to answer those questions. And the second is a very short story, which is the sailor went to the captain to get his pay, his monthly pay. And the captain said, listen, come tomorrow. So the next day, the sailor came back and said, all excited, and told the captain, can I get my money today? And the captain says, hey, didn't I tell you tomorrow? So the fact is that tomorrow never comes. So whatever I've shared with you, these are actionable items that you can start implementing today. So start today.
Absolutely. Your contact information is shared, and thanks so much for your time. And I hope all the attendees enjoyed the presentation and the content. And yes, lots of remarks on giving the presentation. And so thanks again for everything. And inshallah, see you soon, and have a peaceful rest of the month. Okay, thanks, guys.